So thank you all for joining us. It is our first program of the new year, which is wonderful. Our OK Ethics New Year, as many of you know, started back in October with our new fiscal year. So now is the time, if you have not renewed your membership yet, to do so, or go ahead and invite a friend. We would love to have people join us for our programs. So it's a great time to introduce people to OK Ethics. And I know that we as a board and as staff have been talking so much about how ethics training and education is more important than ever, as we have had so many new things to navigate this year. So I do encourage you all to bring a friend, especially when there's a topic that's interesting to you, and just help share that education and share that training with others, so that all of Oklahoma's business community can become an even more ethical place. So thank you again for joining us. Like I said, I will continue to put some CPE instructions in the chat, but we have a link to our Google form if you would like to request there. But please, please participate in the chat so that we are able to verify your attendance easily today. And if you're using a screen name, please go ahead and include your full name so that we are able to find you as we're going through. So we love seeing all of these hellos. Thank you everyone for being here and being excited and ready to participate. We have a fantastic speaker for you today. Dr. Talia Carroll is with us. And before we get to her, I am going to turn it over to Travis Jones, who is our board program chair, who is going to share with you some of the exciting things that we have planned for this spring.
That'd be fantastic. Thank you, Bailey. If you can put it on the screen, you can see our upcoming programs. Today we have secured Dr. Schumann from, he is the president of OU Tulsa, and just a fantastic speaker. He has a weekly radio program. He talks about medical ethics issues, critical medical ethics. He also is a great communicator on how to talk about students and medical things at the school, since he's the president of the school, but he's also a doctor. And so he has a fantastic program lined up for us on February 11th. In March, our program is going to be held by a couple of people. It's from an HR perspective. People pivot from an HR perspective. Amber Bryant with Bank of Oklahoma will be one of our speakers. We have another one that's committed to us, and she'll be from Oklahoma City, and that'll be a great program on just people pivoting. And I think this year has been really one of those years where we've had to do more than we've ever done as far as adapting to people's needs and looking at that from a great perspective. In April, we have Robert Turbine. He is as you can see there, he was an astronaut. He's retired for the Navy. He's a record holder for the most spacewalks during a single space flight. Just a great speaker, very engaging person. Excited to speak to our group. And so we have great programs lined up for you this spring. We're working on one for May, and looking for a national speaker. And we've got some people we've been talking to. So keep in touch. Look forward to having you join us our next program. So thanks so much for joining us today. Put these dates down, put us on your schedule. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Thanks, Travis. Yeah, we are really excited about everything that's coming up. So thanks for your hard work. And I know that Lynn has also worked hard to help set these up. And I am going to introduce Lynn Flynn today. She is our new board chair as of October, but she is no stranger to OK Ethics. She is a founding member and has been involved for many years. So we are delighted to be under her leadership for this new year. And she is our guiding principal speaker for today. So Lynn, I will turn it over to you.
Thank you, Bailey. So I just wanted to say thank you to all of the people who've been participating from OK Ethics members, and how much we've appreciated your loyalty and your just staying with us through these hard times. I mean, that's when the truth of it all comes out, is how people respond during difficult times. And we just want to thank you all for being here today and for being just so involved, even in the virtual world that we're in. But one day we are really going to meet in person, and I'm excited about that day. But for now, we are so grateful for the speakers that we have, and for you. So today I have chosen the guiding principle of respect. And recently, my book club gave us this task that we were to pick a book on the topic of social justice. So I read the book, White Fragility, and it really made me stop and think about a lot of things. And one of the things that particularly stood out for me was the concept of defensiveness. And I really felt like it spoke to me quite a bit that in business, the minute I start feeling defensive, I stop myself and say, wait, why is this coming up in me? And what can I do to listen more and to react less? And the book also talks more about that in personal relationships. When somebody points out something that maybe they didn't appreciate that I said or I did, the first thing that generally happens for me is I get defensive. And I have to stop myself and say, wait a minute, I could look at this as a gift and I could reflect internally about, could I have said that a better way? Did I maybe not, instead of labeling that person as overly sensitive, I could say, maybe there's something in their past and there's a reason why this is sensitive to them for a very valid reason. And so I'm trying to look at myself and to wonder if maybe it's something in me that I need to affect as opposed to labeling someone else. Now, I'm not saying that this is easy because I personally have trouble with defensiveness many times. And so respect is sometimes meaning that you put somebody else's feelings ahead of my need to be right. And it means that I'm willing to listen to another perspective because I care about people and I care about how they're feeling. It's important also, I think, of how I give feedback to other people in the most respectful way I can. And sometimes that means giving people some time to process because I know I need that. And if I want to have diversity of thought, that means that not everybody is going to agree with everything I say or I do. And that is good because I want people to speak up and to offer new ideas. And diversity and inclusion is about having diverse ideas. And that's what it's all, the concept is for, is to include these ideas into our plans. So I just want to thank you all for being somebody's people that speak and give me feedback a lot of times. And I really value you guys because you are people of ethics. So you care about things and I care about what you think. So thank you for listening and considering these thoughts. And I now turn it back to Bailey to introduce our speaker, Dr. Talia Carroll, whom I have had the opportunity to meet, at least virtually, and have been very impressed with her great wisdom.
Thank you. Thanks, Lynn. And that is a great segue. Yes, we have worked with Dr. Carroll before and just kind of serendipitously, and we are so excited that she's here as our speaker for today. So I am going to attempt to share my screen. Are we seeing the correct slide? I hope so. Okay, perfect. And I will be able to share a little more about Dr. Carroll with you. Dr. Talia Carroll currently serves as Vice President for Diversity and Inclusion at Oklahoma City University, Go Stars, where she leads and guides diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts. The foundation of her passion for this work stems from her experiences living in Portugal, Singapore, and Spain, traveling extensively as a member of a military family, as well as the meaningful career opportunities that shaped her worldview and commitment to helping others broaden their perspectives. And I know we are so excited to hear about all of that experience abroad today. With nearly 15 years of professional experience, she has dedicated her career to improving the academic and social support for historically marginalized and underserved populations, with special attention to improving campus climate and sense of belonging within higher education communities. Dr. Carroll engages in her work from an affirming stance by underscoring that intersection identities inform our daily experiences. She thrives from supporting individuals in achieving personal and professional growth as the owner and founder of Kinetic Connections Consulting, LLC. Specifically, she provides coaching, consulting, and speaking engagements for individuals, groups, and businesses on a range of topics, including diversity, equity, inclusion, leadership, and change in career management. Dr. Carroll earned a BA in English and a Master of Education in Adult and Higher Education from the University of Oklahoma. She earned her PhD in higher education from the Pennsylvania State University. In addition to her professional life, she also enjoys spending time virtually, of course, with friends and family, getting takeout from restaurants she hasn't tried before, taking daily walks, and becoming reacquainted with Oklahoma City, having returned back to her home state from living in Colorado. All right, and that is her bio. And I will say, I have to laugh. I feel like our COVID hobbies are probably very different from our regular hobbies. So I appreciate the inclusion of taking walks and getting takeout.
It's a real thing. Yes, I've not quite been good with the daily walks as of late, but good gracious, the takeout I've been really good at. So anyone else in the space today who's been spending all of their money getting takeout, I feel you so deeply. Thank you so much, Bailey, and thank you all so much for being here today. I am just so grateful for the invitation to be here and to really have some clear time to reflect on my experiences abroad and really think too about the privilege I hold to even be able to have experienced those things. And so I'm so excited to spend a little bit of time with you today, and we will be engaging deeply. So we're going to use the chat a lot today. So please join me in the chat. I'm going to ask some questions of folks as well. How about we start with this? You all took the time to be here today. So whether you were here for your CPE credit or here because you're just curious, what is Talia going to say? I feel very grateful you have taken the time. And it feels really special for me to be the first speaker of the year and to really get some good energy going for this wonderful organization. So thank you again for that. So let me share my screen, my slides with you all, and I'm going to share what our aims are for today, and then we'll hop into some questions as well. Bailey, would you be so willing to provide me screen sharing capabilities? It's like passing the power. I love it. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. One of the things I always laugh at a little bit is that you would think after all of these months, we would know how to do this really quickly and easily, but it is never super easy or quick. Like there's still little things we have to figure out along the way. So give me just a second. Did I do it? Awesome. All right, so today I'm going to talk about how living abroad really helped to create a foundation for me with my diversity, equity, and inclusion perspectives. And I want to point out that one of the things I try to be really intentional about, and as a point of learning for me as well, is to include closed captioning. I do not ever want to make assumptions that all of us have excellent hearing. So you will notice that there should be captions at the bottom of the screen should you need or want them. So our aims for today are to talk about a few things I already mentioned in the description. And so one is that seeking and practicing inclusion, equity, and diversity absolutely results in expanded perspectives that you otherwise might not have or might otherwise be limited. So I hope that in the conversation today and as you join me in the chat, you think really intentionally about those things. I also hope that you leave the time today thinking about doing your own personal and business audit. And so what I mean by this is to think about who is surrounding you, what are you surrounding yourself with in terms of people and practice, and if there's real opportunity for you to think beyond and really expand beyond what your norm is and what your bubble is. And finally, that it's really important and critical to engage in intention setting. So for example, I just mentioned I need and want to be more intentional about including closed captioning when I'm engaging in these ways. And that's my intention. It is really clear I'm saying it out loud. I want to be held accountable for that. I don't want folks who maybe are hard of hearing or deaf to have to ask me to do this. It should be something that is automatic that I do, right? That I'm creating equity and not having people have to ask for the thing that will provide them access to fully engage. And so if you think about your personal and professional life, and you haven't really spent time thinking about how can I make it easier for someone to fully participate and not have to ask for the very things for them to be able to participate, it's your time. Today's the day. So I encourage you to be able to do that. So we'll have a little bit of that conversation as well. So I have some questions for you. So let's hang out in the chat for a little bit. Where have you traveled, folks? Tell me where you've traveled. Where have you been? Maybe some of you have also been to the countries I've lived in that Bailey shared in the bio and that you've read. So tell me where you've been. And Bailey, do you want to shout out some places folks have been once they start sharing?
Yes, absolutely. Oh, wow, they're coming so fast. I'm trying to read quickly. I'm seeing UK, Italy, Germany, Norway, Denmark, Japan, Hamilton Island, Australia, Oman, Pakistan. We've got some world travelers here.
Do.
Mexico, London, Russia. Oh, someone grew up in Dubai. Kelly Phillips, that's neat.
That's Kelly.
Romania, Taiwan, Hong Kong. Let's see, nowhere in the past 10 months. That is true.
None of us.
Loved it. Grand Canyon, Virginia, so Spain, so lots here in the US as well. France, Colombia, Canada, Latvia, Pakistan, Scotland, that's a new one we haven't seen, Slovakia, Iceland, Jamaica, Brazil, Bosnia, lived in Scotland. 47 states here. That's Michaela or Michael. Sorry, I'm not pronouncing your name correctly, but that is so cool. I wanted to give you a shout out.
That's good, Bailey. Yeah, this is awesome. Well, I'm in good company. Great. If you need a travel partner when the world opens back up, please pick me. I'm a good travel partner. I promise. I have references. Thank you so much, everybody, for answering. There are lots of places I haven't been yet that have been named here. Dubai is one of them. I have a friend who lives there now, and I told her, like, as soon as the world opens back up, I'm saving all my monies and I'm coming business class to come visit you. You can't travel a long period of time and not travel business class. That's my goal. That's my life goal. Well, thanks, folks. One more question for you. What did you learn, grow to appreciate, and or bring back that positively influenced your personal and professional life? So if you think again back to wherever you traveled, whether it was in the continental United States or just the United States period or abroad, what was something you learned or grew to appreciate that was connected to your travels? And yeah, Bailey, if you want to pick out some goodies to share, I would love to hear as well.
Absolutely. Let's see. I see from Cindy Kernan, we are all human, be kind. Patience and so showing kindness in all situations. I like this from Robert Greenlaw that the pace of life was slower in some places and more relational between people in Brazil. Learning another culture, interacting with locals and seeing how they live, that we're all so much alike. Learned appreciation for what we have and that our challenges are very different compared to others. Learning what is proper before you go so you're prepared, that is a great thing to do. Our power delivery system is that we take our power for granted. But appreciating differences and similarities, meeting new people, smiling is a universal language. I think that's great. Yeah, I see some people being unsure of what to do, feeling a little bit like an outsider, being adventurous and trying the local customs. Food is another universal language, that is true. And just appreciation of other cultures.
Oh, I just so appreciate y'all. Thank you, Bailey, for reading those. Truly, we are all in good company. And even if you didn't respond in the chat, I hope that something that someone else shared really resonated with you. And what I think you'll find is there's some similarity in what you all shared in the chat and some things that I will share with you as well. And so wanted to offer that, of course, we'll be going through my own experiences and how they connect to my own being as a senior diversity professional and business owner. But you are welcome to continue to use the chat and pop in questions or comments. And Bailey is so gracious and said she'll pop in if there's anything that rises to the occasion that you'd like to share with me. So I appreciate that. So I'm a military kid. Any military affiliated folks in the room? If so, well, you can't raise your hand. You can put in the chat that you are military affiliated. So it could be that you are a part of service. It could be that you are part of a military family. I imagine there are people, I don't have the chat up, but know that if you are a part of the military, I appreciate your service. Thank you so much. My step-parent was in the Air Force. And so I think the Air Force is the best. Okay. I'm sure people have feelings about that as well. That's okay. We all have our loves, right? And so I just so appreciate that because of my military affiliation, being a part of a military family, I was afforded the opportunity to live in these 3 different countries. But I want to tell you a little bit of a story. I've always been rather strong-willed. My mother would say I was an easy kid, but I was rather opinionated. My teachers would probably say the same thing. But if it weren't for my strong-willed nature and my being really particular about things, I probably wouldn't be where I am today. I remember thinking very distinctly, how dare you? How dare you pull me away from my family? How dare you take away my friends? How dare you say I have to move to this place where there's no McDonald's? I didn't even like McDonald's as a kid. Why did I care about the McDonald's? I guess all of a sudden I thought I was going to miss the chicken nuggets. And I wanted to use this and share this specifically because sometimes when we are in an absolutely great space to receive good energy and to learn, we have this how dare you energy. How dare someone tell us that we need to learn more and do better? Don't they know how great I am? Right? We become very egocentric, very egotistical about our own lived experience and all we know. And really, we might be missing out on opportunity. So as a kid, right, I couldn't say no. Like, y'all just leave me here with my grandmother. Like, I had to go. And so I like to really use this when I'm feeling stuck, feeling resistant, feeling defensive, right? As Lynn mentioned earlier. How dare I even allow myself to miss an opportunity? So I look forward to sharing more of my opportunity. So these are the country's flags: Portugal, Singapore, and Spain. Good gracious, I love these places. And if you haven't had a chance to travel to any of them and you have the privilege and resources to do so, I fully say go visit any place in any of these places. So here's Terceira Island in the Azores. I didn't live on the mainland. This tiny little island is only 154.7 square miles. Can you imagine how tiny that is? Let me give you a reference point. Our smallest state is Rhode Island, I believe, and it is 1,045 square feet. So I share this because I also can't swim. If anybody wants to give me swimming lessons, don't do that to yourself. I'd probably just be all over the place. I was really afraid to move to this place in the middle of the ocean when I'd never traveled before. And I thought for sure the island is going to just break off and go into the water. I can't swim, and that's how I'm going to die. It was extremely irrational, but that's exactly what I thought. What I didn't know as a young person going to live on this island, that it would enrich my life in so many ways that I would have never guessed as a young person, right? But I wanted you to just see this tiny little place. And it was the start really of really helping me to think about and build my foundation as a diversity, equity, inclusion professional now, and to really be thoughtful about culture and experience and identity in ways that help me to connect with people differently now. And I'm so grateful for that. Okay, so you see this runway? It is less than 2 miles long. So if you can only imagine, I'm already afraid I'm going to drown. And then they tell us we have this short runway and you better make it. The plane better stop. So I already had this heightened sense of like, I don't know why they're doing this to me. How dare you? And I could also drown and the plane could just fall into the ocean. These are not good feelings for a young person to feel. But what I like and what helps me to connect back to diversity, equity, and inclusion is we have to be ready sometimes to feel the fear. We have to be ready to feel the fear. Not everything is going to give us warm fuzzies. Not everything is going to make us feel really excited and lots of sunshine and rainbows. Sometimes we have to experience a little bit of that trepidation for us to get to the other side of goodness. So I wanted to share this because I remember those feelings so much, whether we were coming back from Germany or coming back from the States, like, oh my gosh, we're about to land. I hope the pilot's excellent. I would wonder that as a kid, like I had a pilot license. I had no skill whatsoever. And here's just a beautiful picture of this uniformity and greatness. I remember driving around, it was a very hilly little island. Our little car would just try to chug itself up a hill as we'd go to our favorite restaurant to eat the most perfectly baked bread and the perfectly salted butter. I miss this place a lot. And it taught me so much that, again, I keep with me today. So after I share a little bit about each place I've lived, again, Terceira Island in the Azores, connected to Portugal, I want to talk a little bit about the opportunities I seized and the opportunities I missed. So the opportunities I will always seize. I'm a foodie. Any foodies in the room? Am I alone? I'm not alone, thankfully. And so someone mentioned earlier in the comments that food can be this common denominator, this common way for us to build relationship and be connected. And I think having lived in the US, right, as a young person, I was only exposed to particular foods. And so I had to really expand my mind and be open, like I'm gonna eat all the things. And boy, did I, and enjoy all of it. The reason I just said the freshly baked bread and the perfectly salted butter, my family and I would order multiple baskets of the bread and the butter, and there's this fresh, creamy cheese spread as well. I can taste it. I can imagine sitting in the restaurant. And that was a way for me to connect with Portuguese culture and with the island in particular. And so sometimes we don't even know that these very mundane things like sitting in a restaurant and eating is a way to expand our perspectives about culture and identity and equity even. And I'll share more a little bit about that. Another opportunity seized was that I really had a clear understanding as a young person about how people made a living. So we had this base, there was a small base on the island, and it was really clear that the folks who were local to the community really needed and wanted to work on base to earn a livable wage. And folks who did not, it was really clear that they did not have access to money and to resources in the same ways that folks who worked on the base. And as a young person, that stuck with me. Like, oh, there are some people who can have some things and there are other people who can't. And I took that with me into my next country's experience. But I like to always remember that because sometimes we can be so stuck in our regular lived experiences that we don't even know what's happening around us. We haven't really carved out the space, the mental space, the emotional space to understand that our bubble is our bubble, right? There might be people who are doing much better than us, right? And that's subjective too. There are often, and in our country, in the US in particular, many people who are going hungry every day. There are many people, lots of people who are unhoused and unsheltered. And so we have to be really thoughtful about how we are positioned in the world and what's going on around us. And that experience in Portugal helped me to really be intentional and think about that as a young person. I feel so grateful for that. Here's my missed opportunity, friends. I did not learn Portuguese. I just couldn't, my mouth, I don't know, like I just didn't give it enough energy. But it was a missed opportunity for me to not really be deeply embedded in the culture in a way where I could learn the language. I had access, I had school where I could learn, but I didn't spend the time really committing to it. I didn't know what I was missing. I was steeped in one particular privilege of even living on the island that I thought, oh, well, I'll learn another day. I'll put it off. Anyone else here think like, oh, I'll just do it later. Not a big deal. I'll come back to it. It's really quite a privileged stance for us to even say to ourselves that we can come back to something, that we can do something later. We are not guaranteed even tomorrow, right? So if you have and see an opportunity, take it, seize it, and don't make it a missed opportunity. And one of the things as a young person, I did not quite understand the opportunity to build relationship with locals and to really dive into the culture in a way where I could understand the customs, the language, and the food more deeply. And so that was a missed opportunity for me. So as an adult, and when I started traveling as an adult, I really wanted to be in the culture and hear from people and learn from people what their experiences were. And it's the same with diversity, equity, and inclusion work, right? We need to build relationships with people whose lived experiences are different from ours. It's the only way, right? We can really expand our perspectives in a really intentional way. We can read, sure. And that's important too, right? We can do our own self-work, but there's something about being in a community and a relationship with others that really just puts the icing on the cake. And here's my foodie reference because I'm also hungry. There's that. Next is my beloved Singapore. Oh, has anybody been to Singapore? If you haven't, I really, really suggest you go. It will be worth every penny. It is the most beautiful, advanced, it feels like a mini US, but better. I love my country most of the time. But Singapore is a place that if I could ever move and live there, I would. There's so much richness and culture embedded in the Singaporean life. It was always warm, right off the equator. And for somebody who likes to actually be cool most of the time, I actually enjoyed being able to wear shorts and flip-flops if I wanted. It was quite beautiful. And this is actually an updated picture. This is not at all what Singapore looked like when I lived there, but it makes me feel drawn to it and just lets me know that there's so much that shifts and changes about a country, and allows us to learn more if we ever decide to go back. So we talked about food a little bit more. So in Singapore, there are these hawker stalls, and there are lines and rows of all kinds of different little mini restaurants. And one of the things I loved, I did not add the picture because I did not want to offend any vegetarians in the room, but it was the first place I ever had roasted duck. And in Singapore at the hawker stalls, they would hang the ducks and they'd be beautifully roasted and I would eat them. And this was a great way too for me to be connecting with the culture and to really understand the process of folks roasting these beautiful ducks and providing me perfectly cooked rice and perfectly cooked vegetables. One of my favorite vegetables is baby kailan, a beautiful green vegetable that they would stir fry. And sometimes I would ask for it to be spicy because I like things to sting just a little bit. I like a little bit of spice, for those of you who like spice. And being able to really taste culture, to really be able to talk to people and experience their love and joy of cooking and feeding people was a real important way for me to be connected to the community. And when we think about diversity, sometimes we only think about racial and ethnic diversity or religious diversity, right? We're starting to talk a little bit more about diversity of thought. But right, diversity in cuisine as well also tells a very beautiful story. It's historical, it's exciting, It's lots of things, right? So really trying to figure out where you can really get all of the goodness with a good meal is a good way for you to also practice being a diversity, equity, inclusion practitioner. So this is my last picture for Singapore. I attended Singapore American School, and it was an extremely rigorous experience for me. They called it a college preparatory school. Talk about anxiety. Good gracious, what do you mean? I just want to get through high school. So at Singapore American School, I was in the choir. I loved to sing. I actually wish I could take some singing lessons in my free time these days. I danced, so was really attached to the arts. I tried out for track, but let me tell you a little story. As a part of the process to join the track team, you had to participate in a workout in a pool, and y'all know I can't swim. So I almost died in high school. We had a little paddle board, and the coach is like, go swim across the pool. And I'm like, if I say I can't swim, I won't be able to be on the team. So I'm paddling, I'm not going anywhere, nowhere. And I'm like, I'm going to fall off this board and I'm going to drown, and this is going to make everyone in my family sad. So I had to give it up. But it made me think, had I not been at Singapore American School, like there was no opportunity like this at my school in Portugal, I would not have really dug into this idea that it's okay for me to do things that challenge me. Had I not been at SAS, this beautifully constructed building with PhD instructors and teachers, had I not had that experience, I would not have really prepared myself for the excitement that comes with challenging myself to do things that maybe I wouldn't otherwise do. And that's how I think, again, about diversity, equity, inclusion work. This work is not meant for everyone. You have to be willing. You have to really prepare yourself to dive in, paddleboard and all, and just kick and see if you can make it. And then if not, you create a community and those folks help you make it. And I missed that. That was my missed opportunity. I should have gotten my friends to come around me and just help me along, or at least if I fell off the board, to come get me. So one of the really beautiful things that I think about is sometimes when we are situated in one place, we don't necessarily think about what's all around us and all we can take advantage of. So one of the opportunities I did seize while living in Singapore is that I traveled to Malaysia, I traveled to Indonesia, I went to Japan. As a part of the SAS curriculum, we had the opportunity to participate in a 2-week interim semester, or maybe it was 1 week. It felt like 2 weeks sometimes. So I went to Australia, I went to Nepal, and all of those experiences are deeply embedded in me. I think about them regularly. And except for this time, I got to do some extra reminiscing in preparation for my time with you today. But all of those things really influence me globally, right? I don't only think about US-based contexts of diversity, equity, inclusion. I think about things more broadly. I had tons of relationships with racially and ethnically diverse people. The cuisine was excellent. It was steeped in Chinese, Malaysian, and Indian culture. And so I love all the foods. There's not much I don't. I don't like beets. If there are any beet lovers in the room, I don't understand, but that's your business. I missed some deep opportunity to learn about the history of Singapore. And right as a young person back then, I didn't really care about that. I just wanted to hang out with my friends and pass all my tests and make it through high school. But as I think back, when I travel now, I want to be really intentional about how I'm learning about the history of a culture and its people. And two, in Singapore, there are deep wealth disparities, deep gaps in income levels for a range of people living on this very, very tiny island. Next is Spain. To all the people who've been to Spain, gosh, you probably feel deep love in the same ways I do. So if you see at the bottom, I lived in Rota, Spain. It is where the naval base was where we lived. And so I got to travel a little bit to Gibraltar as well. But I love Spain so much. And again, like all of Spain will get my money as soon as we can travel again. But I really loved that there was real distinction between Portugal and Spain. So some people ask me like, oh, well, isn't it basically the same? I'm like, no, totally different cultures and experiences. And that I lived in southern Spain, there are very clear, like laid back energy, lots of siestas, lots of mid-afternoon naps. We need those here in the US. Anyone agree? This is the gate to get in. So when I come on base, everything was really US centric. Leaving base, I had the opportunity to speak the language, to practice what I was learning in my school, and to be deeply embedded in the culture. It is here that I grew a deep affection for having a salad with tuna, oil, and vinegar. I would never in my life put those things together. And as a younger human, I might say that was nasty, but it was so wonderful. And when I think about going back to Spain and going back to Cadiz in particular, I'm like, I want to go somewhere and have a salad with tuna and oil and vinegar and just sit and enjoy the laid back energy and soak in the culture and beauty of southern Spain. These are what the houses look like, y'all. Aren't they cute and little? So where I lived directly across from my school. And when I think back to walking the halls and all the people I had the opportunity to build relationships with, I realized that I have always been primed for engaging with people who are different from me. I have always been primed for having welcoming energy and being ready to learn more and share more about me with others who don't identify in the same ways I do. And right, we all have the opportunity to do that for sure. So I was a conversational Spanish speaker. Can't do it now. Good gracious, I lost that. I, of course, explored the cuisine as another way to really open my ideas of what it means to be inclusive too, when I would love to feed people. Like, let me learn how to make, and Thai is also one of my favorite. I love Thai food. So I'm trying to learn too, how to share what I've learned about other people's cultures through food as well. I wish I would have traveled more in Spain. I wish I would have built more community with folks, but these things are all like hindsight's 2020, and I know better now, right? Something to think about. So I have 5 quick things I want to share with you, something for you to just chew on a little bit. I use that word intentionally because it's also lunchtime. So what are your opportunities? Are you missing opportunities? Have you spent some time really thinking about what's around you and what you could be experiencing that you're not? Number 4, I want to encourage you to take stock of the people and influences in your life. Are they really homogeneous? Do you have the same types of folks in your life? Do you do the same kinds of things? Do you challenge yourself to go outside of your norm? If not, I want to encourage you to think about it, spend some time really investigating and interrogating what's happening in your life, and then make some changes. 3, embracing change and what's outside of your norm. And I want to give you an example. As we were learning more about how gender identity shows up for people, it took me a little bit of time to really catch on and grasp the importance of using pronouns people need and prefer. Did I mess up a lot? Did I perceive a person to be she, her, but they use they, them pronouns? Absolutely. Was I stuck and limited in a perspective that I grew up with, that I was socialized to believe that there's only 2 different ways, there's only the binary that was valid? Absolutely. But did I want to honor the people who had come into my life? Did I want to make sure I was not misgendering them? Absolutely. So though it was my norm, I wanted to be respectful. I wanted to be sure I was being inclusive. I wanted to be a good DEI practitioner as well, and a good human. So that's my encouragement. Things change all the time. So be willing to embrace things that are outside of your norm. 2, create community. Now, y'all, if I had community while I was in the pool, I could have maybe run track in Singapore. Had I found the people, perhaps I would have made it. I could have been a track star. Okay, no, not really, truly, never. But at least it could have been an idea. It could have been something that was in my head. So create community. And creating community, I mean here, like thinking about people, again, who have a diversity of thought or experience than you, engaging in conversation with them, asking tough questions, being willing to be challenged, really fighting the defensiveness. And I feel it too sometimes. Good gracious. The community will matter so much. And finally, take action. We can't talk about all these things and just not do it. Sometimes we can think about it like, oh yes, I'm going to read an article about XYZ. I'm going to have the difficult conversation, but then we don't follow through. So while it's important for us to be thoughtful about diversity and equitable experiences and inclusivity, we have to be willing to take action. And again, that may not always be comfortable, but I think in this group, we all have what it takes to do so. So within the next 7 days, are you committed to engaging in a conversation and or practice that will expand your diversity, equity, and or inclusion knowledge? I'm asking the question, but really it's just a challenge. Would you be willing to commit to me that in the next 7 days, that you'll be willing to really explore how you are being intentional about thinking about diversity, expanding diversity in your personal or professional life, thinking about whether or not your practices in your businesses are really equitable? If you want to chat with me about that, I'm happy to consult. Or are you really being inclusive in your conversations and your practices? Think about it a little bit. And that's my challenge to you today. I so appreciate the opportunity to be with you today. My contact information is at the top. I so look forward to connecting with you again. It's so wonderful to be back home in Oklahoma. And when the world opens back up, let's grab some wings or other food that you might enjoy. Maybe you can introduce me to something new that will expand my palate and my perspective. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that. I have taken copious notes here myself, and really loved how you have then also committed us to accepting, or issued a challenge to each of us that we will have a conversation or engage in a practice that will increase our DEI knowledge. I know this is an incredible starting point. So thank you for giving all of us this food for thought today. Pun intended, since we've talked about food so much. We do want to have time. We have plenty of time. We have 10 minutes to take questions. I see the chat is coming through pretty quickly. Thanks for sending all of these thanks. If you would use our Q&A box, you can still use the chat, but use the Q&A box so that we don't miss your questions. So if you have a question for Dr. Carroll, now is your opportunity. Don't miss it. I will say we had one come through earlier from Oscar Womack. He just wondered, how long did you live in each country?
Oh my gosh, I can't believe I didn't share that. Yes. So we lived in the Azores for 2 years, in Singapore for 3, and Spain for 1. And throughout all of those years, I got to travel to so many other places. And after I left and started college at OU, I still had the travel bug. So was able to travel to some other places as well, and have since visited Colombia, and I'm trying to plan a trip to Brazil for when the world opens back up. But yeah, I have the travel bug. It's just waiting for me to be able to go somewhere. Thanks for the question.
Yeah. We have a couple more about your time abroad. What years did you live in Singapore? Because Brett Little lived there as well.
Oh, when was it? Gosh, it was so long ago. I think it was early 90s. This is sad that I should know this, right? I was just stuck on the food. In the 90s.
Great.
Yes.
All right. And then another great question was, where would you live now outside the US if you're given the chance?
Oh my God, that's almost like asking me my favorite food. I want to eat it all. I want to live everywhere.
Several people have asked, where would you like to travel? So where would you live and where would you like to travel?
I would love to visit Ireland. If I could really commit myself to learning another language, it would be Italian. And so I would love to visit Italy. For some reason, I never made it there. All of my planning, my plans to get people together to travel just didn't work out. But if I could live anywhere else again in the places I have already lived, I would absolutely go back to Singapore. But I want to go everywhere. I want to go to Dubai. I'd like to just, go through France, just to see the Eiffel Tower. But yeah, I'm just so open. I want to go to Costa Rica. I'd love to go back to Colombia. Thanks for the question.
Yeah. Okay, we've had a couple more come in. These might be a little more challenging. Um, we had someone ask about what are some ideas for ways that we can help our children grow in DEI?
Oh, I love this question so much. Well, I think one of the things that's really important is to really be open to engaging in conversation. And right, so I think as the parent, you decide what the limitations or boundaries you want to put around what those conversations look like. But if you're a reading family, there are tons of books that I think are good starting places. And you can have conversation about a range of identity around race, around socioeconomic status, around class, that I think would be a good starting place. And you can gauge, whether your child or children are receptive to those things and to help to really connect to what's happening in the broader societal context as well. So they aren't really confused about what's happening and what we're experiencing. But I would say books first, and then you also sharing what's happening for you. Like, hey, little human, here's what's happening, and here's how, me as a parent, what I'm experiencing, and allow them to really meet you where you are in those conversations. But yeah, reach out to me too. We could chat. I have lots of conversations with my friends with children about these things.
That's great. Here's another one that is asking about children. So while we're on the discussion, we had the question of how do you think foreign trips would expand youth's understanding of political or economic diversity?
I mean, it just does. Okay, so I shouldn't say that. I mean, anytime we travel, we have to be intentional. So if I want to go just relax and I want to go stay at an all inclusive, I'm not really doing anything intentional to really learn. So I think if plan a trip, really be intentional about history, going to museums, finding out where locals spend time, and really helping to bring the family together to have conversations and say, today we're going to learn about cuisine. Today we're going to learn about the political experiences of folks in this country. Like when I went to Colombia, for example, my friend and I had some really intense conversations about all of the political happenings in Colombia at the time. But that really helped to stretch our perspective. So I think just being intentional and deciding what is it we want to gain from this experience and how can we get it through our eating, our conversation with people, going to the museums, identifying maybe a reading or book that you can read together, to really sort of provide a foundation from which to engage in those conversations.
I think that's awesome. We have a couple of questions that are a little more geared to OCU. We have Karina Salazar Lopez. She is an OCU alumna, and then we have an anonymous question about it as well. But they are wondering, what are your diversity plans on campus and interaction with minority student clubs like the Hispanic Student Association? And then another attendee has asked, what are some practices that OCU does to increase their diversity?
Yeah, so it's one of the things I feel very excited about and so happy to represent OCU today as well. I'm doing a lot. I'm an extremely ambitious person, maybe too much. But one of the initiatives that I'm actually going to be launching, well, several initiatives. One of them is an inclusive language campaign. We sometimes forget how much language matters and how it really can either help or hinder someone's feelings of being included and belonging. And so we will be launching a campaign to really help people understand, again, how language can make folks feel or invite them to feel really deeply a part of the community. I'm also working on a reporting structure for folks to report bias-related incidents so that there's a centralized place and that I can really understand what's happening with the community. I've only been in the position since June 1st, so I'm still learning so much and really needing some time to better understand and continue to build community with folks on campus and our friends of OCU and alumni, because what they have experienced and what they share with me helps to influence. Actually, for the student orgs, my director actually supports all of our multicultural student organizations. So I have a direct line to them, and actually HSA is really amazing. And they actually held a panel on microaggressions. And I was on the panel with several other colleagues, and we talked about what a microaggression is and how it's experienced for students and how us as professionals experience them as well. So I'm really just still getting feelers. I'm trying to do my best to rein in my desires to do things, but doing what matters most. I will also be creating and launching a process for us to work together through difficult dialogue. I think sometimes it's hard for us to really want to have the conversation, but we're not really sure how to, or maybe there's some hierarchy things that are happening, or we don't want to offend, or we don't want to lose relationship. So I'm going to work through trying to create a series of conversations for faculty, staff, and students so we can all practice and be on the same page about how to engage with folks in really intentional ways.
I think that's a great segue to another question that we had asked, and maybe there might be a little bit of overlap, but someone asked, how do you suggest getting employees to become aware of diversity, inclusion, and equity, and respecting others that might not look like them?
Yeah, so this all goes back to conversation. It goes back to really the foundation is providing a space where folks feel some sense of comfort, but again, we don't grow in our areas of comfort all the time. But there has to be regular conversation. It has to be coming up in team meetings. There has to be space to be uncomfortable, right? To experience the discomfort and say, hey, this might not feel good to us, but this is important for us to have a conversation about. And I think it depends on the employees or the group or the culture or context of the organization. So really, there's no one right answer for that other than really trying to create some good opportunity for conversation, even when it's hard.
That's awesome. Here, since we have 1 minute left, we'll do one last question, which I think everyone might benefit from. Janet has asked if there are any book recommendations for adults on DE&I to couple with the personal challenge that you
Oh my goodness. I should be prepared to answer the question. I am not. So this is what I'm going to do because there's so many options. How about I do this? I will share some with Bailey. Just give my brain some time to curate a good list, and I'll send those over and she can share out with everyone who's registered today. Does that sound fair?
That sounds perfect.
Yes.
I love that idea.
Awesome.
Take this presentation and we are going to have our action items afterwards. So I think that's a perfect plan.
Well, I so appreciate these excellent questions. I think I also saw someone ask me about swimming. I don't know if I can ever learn. It's in my head. I don't know. But for those of you who are in the space, if you ever need or want someone to come work with you and to consult and help you think and broaden your perspectives, feel free to be in touch anytime. And thank you again, Bailey and Lynn and Travis, for having me today. I feel very grateful to have had the opportunity to reflect and so happy to build relationship with all 152 of you right now.
Yes, absolutely. And I will ask you, Talia, if you would put your contact information in the chat really quickly, because we've got a few people asking for that so they can do their follow-up with you. And I want to thank you so much. This has been such a delightful lunch hour, and we've gotten so many comments that say that. And obviously, all the talk about food has me thinking about food, but I think that you've given us all some incredible questions to ask ourselves, and just taking those opportunities that we have to broaden our experiences, to broaden our minds and our way of thinking. And so I know that I feel really equipped to go out and do that. I've already been thinking about what is it that I have missed out on, and what can I go pursue for myself. So thank you so much for sharing that with us. Just housekeeping items, everyone, please say goodbye as you sign off so that we know that you were here if you're seeking a CPE. February 11th, that is a Thursday. So for all of you Tulsans, we're going to your Thursday instead of a Wednesday next time. And Oklahoma City people, I hope you will update your calendars accordingly. So Thursday, February 11th will be our next presentation with Dr. Schumann. And I think that will be really, really interesting to learn the ethics behind a lot of these medical decisions that are being made right now, and also how that might affect us in our workplaces. So thank you all so much for being here. Again, if you haven't renewed, I am director at okethics.com. If you need to reach me, I'll put my contact information in the chat as well. If you haven't yet renewed your membership, please do so, because we love having you on these. And I know that Dr. Carroll for sure has shared so much incredible information with us. I know that we'll just continue to grow and learn as this year goes along. So thank you all. Lynn and Travis, thanks for being with us. And I think that's it. I'll stay on in case we have a few more chats coming through, because they're still coming through right now, and we'll close out the presentation. So thank you all so much for joining us.